Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll read from The Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Canto 8, Enchanting Pastime. And this is the last chapter of this canto, Matsya, the Divine Fish, chapter number 24. Mukam karoti vachalam, pangum langhete girim yat kripatam ham vande, Shri Gurum Deen Tarinam, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram, Hariyam Tatsat. Shukadev said, I have described the 14 Manus in the current day of Brahma and the histories of Krishna's incarnations during each of their reigns. Is there anything else you would like to know? Parikshit thought for a few moments. Repeatedly, Shukadev had stressed the importance of hearing about Krishna's divine activities. Parikshit loved these pastimes as they gave him great solace. He cast his mind back over all he had heard and decided he would like to know more about Matsya, the fish incarnation, whom Shukadev had already briefly mentioned. My dear master, I have learned from you that although the Lord is always transcendentally situated, he nevertheless regularly descends to the material world in various forms. I have heard that his first incarnation was as Matsya the fish, O most powerful sage. Kindly tell me more about that pastime. I am confused why he would accept the form of a fish. Conditioned souls are forced to accept such a low body due to past sins, but I don't understand why the Supreme Lord accepts such an abominable form. Fish suffer greatly and always face peril. So why would Krishna accept such a form? He must have done so to favor some devotee, and I am eager to know more about that personality. Since learning about Krishna's pastimes is auspicious for everyone, kindly explain all this to me. Shukadev showed his appreciation for the question. I am delighted that you have inquired about Matsya. First, however, let me establish the universal truths about the Lord's incarnations. He incarnates to accomplish one or more of these goals: to protect cows, Brahmins, the gods, his devotees, the Vedic literature, religious principles, and those required for attaining the goal of life. Secondly, the Lord's forms are never abominable but always transcendently situated. Consider this example. The air passes through many places but never changes. Even though it may carry a strong odor, it still does not change its nature. Similarly, even when the Lord accepts the form of a fish, his transcendental nature is not compromised. The sage explained that Krishna had twice incarnated as a fish. At the end of Brahma's last day, at the time of annihilation, a demon stole the Vedic knowledge. Thus, at the beginning of Brahma's new day, when Swayambhuva Manu commenced his reign, the Lord appeared as Matsya and rescued the Vedas. Later, Matsya again appeared during the reign of the sixth Manu, Chakshusha. My dear master, pray tell me about that second appearance. Shukadev replied that there lived at that time a king named Satyavrat who was Vishnu's great devotee. Listen now as I tell you his history. King Satyavrat knelt on the bank of the river Kritamala, offering oblations to Krishna. He was always happiest when engaged in such worship. Disinclined toward worldly enjoyment, he had only assumed kingship of the world to please his father, who had wished to retire. Seeing Satyavrat unmarried and without issue, his ministers had repeatedly beseeched him to accept a wife. Therefore, the king decided to engage in the austerity of subsisting only by drinking water whilst meditating on Vishnu to gain his favor. He continued his worship for some months. One evening, as he scooped up the river water in his cupped hands, he saw he had caught a small fish. As he was about to throw it back into the river, to his surprise, the fish spoke in an appealing voice. My dear king, protector of the poor, why are you throwing me in the river? where other aquatics can kill me. I am very much afraid of them." Startled, the king looked down at the unusual fish and said, "O small fish, you are my subject and I must offer you protection. I have no reason to be afraid." Keeping the fish safely in his hands, he waded back to the shore where his charioteer stood, ready to return him to the palace. Ordered by Satyavrat, the charioteer quickly filled his water jug with clear river water. With the fish safely placed within, the king returned to his palace along with the tiny creature. Early the following day, before the sun had risen, King Satyavrat worshipped the Brahmins and dealt with the matters of state his ministers brought before him. An hour after sunrise, he prepared to return to the river Kritmala to continue his meditations. Before leaving, he decided to check on the fish. He said to an attendant, "Bring me the fish I brought back last night." The servant ran off and returned with the jar containing the fish. The king saw it had grown so much during the night that it could not move. In an anguished voice, it said, "My dear king, please help me. This water pot is far too small for me. I am in great discomfort. Please find some better vessel where I can reside peacefully." Snatching the jar from the servant, Satyavrat hurried to a nearby large well and threw the fish in. Peering into the well, the king called, "Dear fish, be peaceful and happy here. I will check on your comfort again when I return from my meditations this evening." Turning to leave, he only took a few steps when he heard the fish plaintively calling out, "Please help me. This well is not big enough for me. Please give me a more extensive pool of water, for I have taken shelter of you." Perplexed, the king turned back and again peered into the well. The fish was now so large that he could barely move in the well. Satyavrat shook his head in amazement. He had to move the fish immediately. But how? It could not be lifted with the well buckets. He would need to call the court Brahmins to extract the fish using mantras. The king dispatched his servants to summon the Brahmins swiftly. He stayed by the well, consoling the distressed fish. When the priests arrived, Satyavrat said, "Good sirs, please transport this fish to the palace lake with all haste." Surrounding the well, the chief and most experienced Brahmins began chanting mantras in unison. Suddenly, before the king's eyes, the fish disappeared from the well, accompanied by his entourage. He hurried to the lakeside in his palace gardens. Satyavrat's eyes widened with alarm when he saw from a distance a gigantic aquatic splashing its tail in distress. Barely able to move in the lake, seeing the king hurrying toward him, the fish called out, "Dear king, save me. I am far too large for this pond. Please find a larger lake where I may live comfortably." Turning to the Brahmins and his court ministers, the king anxiously said, "This fish has taken shelter of me. I cannot disgrace my dynasty by allowing it to die. Which of you can advise me of a suitable body of water where this creature may peacefully live under my protection?" As the ministers looked at each other in bewilderment, the Brahmins quickly conferred. Then the chief Brahmin addressed King Satyavrat. "Dear king, there is a large lake in the valley not far from here where sages go to perform austerities. It is extensive and there are no dangerous aquatics dwelling there. This is the most suitable place for us to transport this creature. Do it immediately," the king ordered. Ascending his chariot, he hurried to ensure the fish was safe. By the time he arrived at the lakeside along with the Brahmins and his court ministers, the fish had already grown too large for even that vast reservoir. His head painfully pressed against the bank, he called out pitifully when he saw the king's chariot racing toward him, "O king, thinking you were a righteous monarch, I sought your shelter. Why have you put me into such a miserable condition?" Sweat pouring from his brow, the confounded king alighted from his chariot and surveyed the situation. This lake was like a small sea, but the fish's body was so massive that it could hardly move. Addressing the fish, which continued to reproach him, he said, Dear fish, please be patient. I shall immediately have you transferred to the vast ocean. Ordered by Satyavrat, the Brahmins again began to chant their mystic mantras. Still on hearing them do so, the fish cried, O hero, do not throw me into the great ocean, where there are very powerful and dangerous sharks that will eat me. The Brahmins desisted and waited for the king's order. Satyavrat fell to his knees by the lakeside, his head in his hands, his mind bewildered. How could he, the great and powerful Satyavrat, not be able to give suitable protection to a fish? Finally composing himself, the king addressed the fish in a humbled voice. Who are you, sir? We are confused. You have expanded for hundreds of miles in one day, covering the river and ocean waters. Before this, I had never seen or heard of such an aquatic animal. The fish did not reply, but thrashed about in the lake, repeating, I have sought your shelter. You must save me. Satyavrat wrung his hands in anguish. How had this fish so confounded him? He prayed to Vishnu. Surely this phenomenal creature was the Lord himself. Satyavrat's heart became gladdened as this realization dawned. Yes, this was clearly Vishnu, removing his pride in being a great ruler and protector of others. He began offering heartfelt prayers to the divine aquatic. My Lord, you are undoubtedly the inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead. Narayan, you have assumed a fish form to show us mercy. You are the master of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, the supreme enjoyer, Lord Vishnu. You are the leader and destination of surrendered devotees like us. Therefore, I offer you my respectful obeisance. The fish replied in a grave and sonorous voice. Why do you think I am Vishnu? Could I not be a god? Satyavrat's conviction increased, and tears of joy began to trickle down his cheeks. My Lord, he said, I have never worshipped the gods, since they falsely identify with their material bodies. Worship of them is fruitless in all respects. I have always worshipped the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, because he is the greatest friend and dearmost Rupa soul of everyone. Such worship is never useless. Therefore, I am certain you are my venerable Lord, appearing as a fish. The enormous fish gave a great booming laugh, indicating his approval of Satyavrat's words. Still kneeling by the river bank, Satyavrat humbly placed his palms together and addressed Matsya. All your incarnations certainly appear for the welfare of all beings. Therefore, my Lord, I wish to know why you have assumed this aquatic form. Again, Matsya's melodic laughter resounded across the lake shore, bringing joy to the hearts of all. My dear devotee, I have come to do you good and enjoy my pastimes in the waters of inundation. Satyavrat looked perplexed. Inundation? My dear hero, do not be afraid. 7 days from today, the 3 planetary systems will all be annihilated. You have no fear, for I will send you a large boat. Satyavrat listened attentively to Matsya's instructions to collect every herb and seed and load them on the great boat. He should also gather a male and female from every species. I shall instruct the 7 great sages to accompany you. With their companionship, you will be free of all moroseness. Matsya warned Satyavrat that powerful winds would toss about the boat, but he should not fear. I shall assist you. And the great serpent Vasuki will also come to you. Tie one end of his body around my horn and the other to the boat, pulling that ship with you and all the sages in it. O king, I shall swim in the water of devastation until Brahma's slumber ends. Satyavrat's heart filled with sorrow and compassion. How could he save himself and let all the world's citizens perish in the flood? The king said, I would rather die with everyone else than live in the knowledge that I did not protect my citizens from this impending destruction. Matsya said, it is only due to illusion that you feel such grief. While I guide you through the seas, I will favor you with transcendental knowledge, freeing you of all lamentation and fear. Matsya then disappeared. The king immediately ordered his ministers to gather the seeds of all the herbs and vegetation, along with the males and females of all species, and bring them to him. He spread kusha grass in the same spot, sat and meditated on Matsya. As Matsya had predicted, after 1 week had passed, huge dark clouds gathered in the sky and poured water incessantly, swelling the ocean more and more. Soon everywhere was flooded as the sea swept over the land. Satyavrat continued to sit amid the deluge. Determinedly meditating on Matsya, on his order, sages descended from the higher regions to join him. As the flood water rose, a great boat appeared before them. Satyavrat and the sages quickly loaded all the animals and seeds onto it and climbed aboard. The rains relentlessly beat down, and the fierce winds tossed the boat from side to side. The sages gathered around Satyavrat, and shouting over the howling wind, they asked him to again meditate upon the Supreme Lord Keshava. He will save us from the impending danger and arrange for our well-being. Satyavrat sat below deck, meditating upon Krishna. The boat rocked back and forth, and the sea swept over the deck, threatening to engulf them. But Satyavrat still did not break his meditation. After a few days and nights had passed, during which Satyavrat continuously meditated, the gigantic golden fish appeared in the storm-tossed ocean. The fantastic creature's length could not be estimated. The sages thought it stretched for millions of miles. They also saw that it had a single great horn on its head. The serpent king Vasuki also appeared in the swirling ocean along with Matsya. In a trance, Satyavrat heard Matsya say, "My dear devotee, open your eyes and quickly secure the boat to my horn." Returning to external consciousness, Satyavrat rushed up on deck and saw Matsya playing in the waters. He also saw Vasuki lifting his tail out of the water and over the ship, along with the sages. The king wrapped it around a great bollard in the boat's prow. Vasuki then coiled himself around the divine fish's horn. As Matsya began to heave on the ship, it steadied amid the wind and rain. Satyavrat collapsed on the deck, his heart pounding. They were safe at last. He remembered his ministers and citizens as it is recovered from the previous week's ordeal. They had all depended on his protection, but now they were all dead, drowned in the floods. His heart ached and he wept aloud. His copious tears mixing with the pounding rain, how would he ever find relief from this terrible heartache? Recalling Matsya's reassurance, he composed himself and went to the ship's forecastle. He stood with the folded palms and in a voice hoarse with the grief called prayerfully to Matsya, "My dear Lord, since time immemorial, I have forgotten my real self and falsely identified with my material body. Thus I have suffered unbearable miseries. O my Lord Matsya, please, I accept you as a supreme spiritual master. Please cut the knot of illusory desires for material happiness from my heart. No one else, neither gods nor the sages, can offer mercy that equals yours. Therefore, I surrender unto you. Please enable me to realize my true eternal spiritual identity. O Lord, most dear friend, supreme controller, by your instructions, please enable me to understand life's true purpose." On hearing his devotee's sorrowful prayer, Matsya compassionately began to instruct him about the difference between the body and the soul. He cited histories from the Puranas, his voice carrying powerfully over the howling winds and rain, carefully explaining that the soul's real interest lies in surrendering to him with love and faith. As Satyavrat, surrounded by their sages, listened to Matsya's instructions regarding self-realizations, all his sorrow gradually dissipated. And this is what we all are aiming in our lives as human beings. Parikshit listened in silence. Tears of gratitude pricked his eyes, which he fixed on Shukadev with affection and reverence. Just as Matsya delivered King Satyavrat from ignorance and dissipated his grief, the sage, as the Lord's perfect representative, was delivering him. Shukadev said, "My dear king, I have now explained why Krishna incarnated as a fish. Do you have any other questions?" Parikshit gathered his thoughts. He had doubts about the Matsya episode. The king said, "O master, Satyavrat lived during the reign of Chakshusha Manu, the 6th in this day of Brahma. Normally, annihilation occurs after the 14th Manu at the end of Brahma's day. How is that an inundation occurred after the 6th Manu? An excellent observation and question, dear Parikshit. Shukadeva explained that this devastation occurred not during Brahma's night, but during his day. By Krishna's supreme will, Brahma felt sleepy and took a short rest during his day. It was the Lord's inscrutable desire to favor Satyavrat by delivering transcendental knowledge to him. Parikshit shook his head slowly in amazement. To elevate his devotee, Krishna can even contravene the cosmic order. Dear Master, pray tell me, what happened to Satyavrat after the inundation subsided? Completely illuminated with Vedic knowledge by the mercy of Lord Matsya, he later took birth as the son of Vivaswan, the sun god. He now lives as the Manu of this current age, Vaivasvat. So Satyavrat took birth by the mercy of Lord Matsya as the son of Vivaswan, the sun god, and now he lives as the Manu of this current age, and he is called Vaivasvat. Current age, Vaivasvat. Shukadev concluded, the story of Matsya is a great transcendental narration. Anyone who hears it is delivered from the consequences of sinful life. He will have all his ambitions fulfilled and return to the spiritual world. I offer my humble respects to Lord Vishnu, who pretended to be a fish, explained the essence of Vedic literature, and returned that knowledge to Brahma after it had been snatched by an asura named Hayagriva. The sun was setting over Naimisharanya as Sutta ended his narration for the day. The sages gradually rose from their places and went to the Gomati river for their evening bath and prayers. The air was filled with buzz of their conversation. Such fascinating stories, said one. The Lord's pastimes are truly astonishing. Indeed, said his companion, and just by hearing them we can be liberated. Yes, said a third sage, overhearing them. How wondrous! No need for rigorous austerity, yoga, or great Vedic scholarship. Just hear about Krishna. Loudly praising Krishna, the sages entered the river and began their prayers, looking forward to the next day when Sutta would resume his narration. So this brings us to the end of Canto 8, which was the Enchanting Pastimes. And this chapter we heard all about the Matsya, the divine fish, avatar of the Lord. And I wish you all a very happy Nirjala Ekadashi tomorrow, if you're observing it. And yes, let us try to do as much as we can remember, hear, say about Krishna tomorrow, and not just tomorrow, but each and every day, so that we can be having a lot of bliss and ultimately find the real purpose of our human life. Priyam Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.